So my name is Filip Milosavljevic. I am 33 years old, and I am currently the pastor for young adults, university students on the campus of Loma Linda University.
All right. How many pastors are on Loma Linda?
So at our church, it's the biggest Adventist church in North America. So we have 6,500 church members. So it's not necessarily the largest megachurch of denominations, but for Adventists, we're actually very small centered. Normally, we like to have smaller churches where you can have bigger sense of community. So this is kind of a rare occurrence that we have such a large church here, and there are about 15 pastors on our team.
How many church? Because we've heard different numbers of church in Loma Linda area. The two main are University Church and Campus Hill, right? But we've heard there's more than 12 or 15?
Yeah, so in the Adventist system has a hierarchy of structure. So within this space, you have the church, which is the lowest structure. Then you have a conference, which has many churches together. And in our conference here in southeastern California, we have 177 churches. Wow. And just in this 5-mile vicinity, there's over 30 churches, Adventist churches. Wow. So it's a high concentration of Adventist community, I think for various reasons. I think one being, hey, it's warm, it's nice. People like that. But also it's Loma Linda. And that means something to people when they come to California. They say, hey, we've got to visit Loma Linda.
Can you tell us why?
Yeah. You know, for many Adventist people, when they retire, they want to be here because this is the epicenter of health in our denomination. Around the world, people want to visit the health center. This was one of the first medical schools that was established in the Adventist system in early 1900s. And people want to be in a place where there's a health center, but also where there's a like-minded mentality. And you find that here the strongest that I've seen out of many Adventist communities like that we have around the world. It's beautiful to experience people have a hunger for community. They have a hunger for a collective, healthy mindset. They have a hunger for faith together. And, you know, when you are in a group of people like that, it synergizes the energy. And it keeps you accountable to something. As you see, hey, this guy is so much older than me, and yet he's able to do so much, you know, and so there's this accountability of mindset that we have together.
Yeah. Can you define first what is community? Because we live in Europe, it's more an individualistic mindset, I believe. So what is, can you define community? What is it?
Yeah. I would challenge the argument that Adventists know community the best. I'm from Europe myself, born in Eastern Europe. When the evening comes, all the cafes are open, all the restaurants, people flood into there. But in North America, Western world, you know, you enter into your home, you open the garage, your car enters in, the garage door closes, and community is done. It's closed off a little bit. It's individualistic. But what I think is unique in the Adventist culture, worldwide, speak about it in Loma Linda, is that faith binds people for the necessity to gather together. We want to be together, especially on these unique time spaces where time almost ceases to exist. The need for rush, the need for money, the need for hurry. And that's what we call the Sabbath. And so community for us is this experience where we say we're better together than we are apart. Where we say we flourish when we are next to each other, holding hands, singing, looking forward to something to come, which for us, faith leads us to something. It's not just a temporary experience here and now that we benefit, But for us, community also propels us to look beyond. And that's that spiritual dynamic, the metaphysical, the quantum leap into what we don't see here and now, which we call heaven, which one day, you know, the idea of Jesus coming again, and that propels us to believe this is not the only existence. This is not it. And so community means gathering, community means together connectedness, community means strength in numbers.
Thanks, Philip. Can you tell us if how church was involved in the Adventist health study, or how the commitment, how church helped with health and longevity here in Loma Linda?
So the Adventist health study was based out of Loma Linda here for several years, for many years, and actually still continues even now. And the church took a strong role in that. Recruitment came out of church facilities. And that's the best place to find Adventists, which are in churches. And so while the health center at Loma Linda could offer a recruiting practice, hey, we'd love to gather as many Adventists, the churches was a strong place of saying, hey, those of you who'd like to take part in helping the world understand why it is that we live longer, why it is we show higher results in our overall health and being, why it is that there is something unique about us, please, would you consider being part of this study? And so people in droves, I think there were dozens of thousands that came forward and said, hey, I'd love to be part of this. I want to be a number in this collective.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. About faith to Jesus Christ and longevity and health and being healthy. What is your feeling about that?
Yeah. You know, as a young person, sometimes you think, hey, you will live forever. You will enjoy life as long as need be. And yet then all of a sudden it comes to me being now in my 30s, and I'm like, man, my knees kind of hurt a little bit. I've been exercising too much, you know. I'm gaining a little bit of what's going on. But it could be so much more than just recognizing joints hurting, gaining weight. You recognize that this body is part of something bigger. And so for Adventists, this idea of faith and health comes together in this sense. Jesus kind of declares this idea in the New Testament and Old Testament as well, that the body is a temple. You know, we think of people going to a temple to worship, but the body itself is used in worship to God. And if this body, this temple of sorts, is not in its best form and function, my communication with God is completely off. And so my desire to keep the temple as holy, as clean, as best in use, maintained as well, then causes me to rethink, hey, what am I eating? What am I drinking? What am I doing with my time? How am I causing my mind to be distracted? What can help in that process? So that's part of the journey as a young person, where faith, Jesus' word through the Bible, convicts us to say, we need to realign ourselves with something that's a higher authority than what the world is marketing to us, what society markets to us, what the fast food chains market to us, what even employers market to us. You need to be more productive. You need to put a bigger output. You need to make us more money. And I think Adventists say, hey, I agree with those things to an extent, but I need to slow down, because this temple, it needs to live longer to sustain what? Not greater output for the world, but a greater output for the kingdom of God. So it's not just about living longer. Some people forget that. It's not about, hey, you know, it's great to be Adventist, you live longer. If there's no purpose to the longevity, what is the purpose of the longevity? You can have miserable people in their 80s and they live longer and their family members are like, I hope they die soon. My goodness, it's such a burden. But when you have purpose and meaning in the age to come, ooh, now you have quality. Now we talk about longevity, faith, and purpose. And I think Adventism provides purpose for people later into life.
It's really interesting what you say to us, because like there's the ikigai in Japan, which would be translated into purpose of life, or plano de vida in Costa Rica. But we found out, for example, that in Costa Rica, plano de vida is not really a purpose in life. It's actually what we're gonna do tomorrow. You know, it's more like small, short-term life project. What you're talking about is about, you know, purpose of life. What I want to do with my life, what I'm here for. And do you? What is the? I lost what I wanted to say. Is purpose always linked to service for you? Because we hear a lot of service, like Adventist community is leaning towards service. Service. How can I serve? Is it purpose and service are linked together?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that, well, you have to first focus on in the sense that you yourself must be connected to God before you can connect well with the world. If you are not connected vertically with God, you can't really serve people well. And so I think in the Adventist mindset, there is this personal ownership. Hey, I need to be right with the Lord. I need to be in a good mindset, a healthy focus, a state of being that is optimizing everything else I do. And so that's first, but then it must always go outward. You can think of it like this. You are blessed to be a blessing. You are blessed because you recognize the blessing must always flow outward. If it doesn't flow outward, it's like a pond. Pond is no fresh water. It just stagnates. It begins to build mold and bacteria, and it's stuffy. And that's what health, I think, in certain groups, they focus on how can I be the best? How can I gain everything so that I can live longer, be healthier? But to what end again? You're a stuffy pond if you are not thinking about what can I do with this for the betterment of my family, my neighbors, my community, and the world.
So regarding the connection with God, is it through prayer, individual prayer, going to the church together, or also maybe meditation practices or breathing practices? How is it?
Yeah. You know, in my life, I have grown up with a father who was very disciplined and dedicated to studying each day. He would open up his Bible. He would pray there for our family at his desk, his study desk. And I would walk by and I would see him doing that every single day. And I think for health, in terms of faith practices, it's something you learn with others. It isn't necessarily something that you just, oh yes, I know how to pray, and you do it by yourself. It's a trained practice. It's like having an apprentice and someone who teaches. And so in my home, my father taught me how to pray. He taught me how to study and read and understand. And so these practices now became part of my ritual. So it's a daily thing that I want to connect with God through prayer, through reading the Bible. But then also, I really am trying to just be still a little bit more. I'm not thinking about much, but just stopping, pausing, waiting, and allowing God to speak to me in those spaces of silence through what I've read, through my prayer. It's very important to my daily function. And if I can add one thing, what's unique about the Adventist system is we have a study-based system that's worldwide. And it's our Sabbath school experience. And we have a lesson book that everyone in the entire world at the same weekend is studying the same thing. There is something global and connected about that. When you realize, hey, they're studying a passage in the Bible that I'm studying. They're studying a topic I'm studying as well. And so there's this global understanding at the same time together. It's very powerful when you realize how that works.
Sabbath school is only, it's about studying a passage of the Bible.
It's
Discussing, like,
discussion-based study of passages, of topics, and of issues in society, utilizing the Bible and other Adventist writings in conjunction together.
We've noticed also that food is always part of a lot of the events. So, for example, when you invited us over here, so there was soup, there was really nice food. So the other events where we were related to the Seventh-day Adventists, there was always some food. Is the food in a way symbolizing nutrition in its whole? Or what's the principle behind the food?
Yeah. Food at an Adventist gathering is almost a necessity, you could say. It's really not an Adventist gathering without a table that everyone can sit at. We call this potluck. It's a pot that everyone can contribute to and everyone can share. The one who's brought something shares with the one who didn't. It's a communal experience of giving and abundance, and also saying there is space for us to talk, to hear one another, to listen to each other, to be part of one another's lives. And it's also this idea that there's always going to be space at the table for one more. No one is left out when we eat. We don't want anyone to say, I came to church, they had food, but there was none for me. No, there's always spiritual food and there's sustaining real food. They both work in conjunction together. Jesus did miracles for people. He did physical miracles where he healed their bodies, but then he also multiplied food for people. And so every weekend is a multiplication of food for our community and anyone who comes to visit.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your curriculum? Because it's rare to see such a young, handsome and energetic pastor, you know, and it's the first time for me, and I just love that. You're really an inspiration. Yeah. You know, you play basketball, you're married, you have a small baby. So how someone become a pastor?
Yeah.
What is the curriculum?
Yeah.
Because, because all the other pastors we've met are more senior people.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure. You know, becoming a pastor is really an individual journey where you sense a call from God in some way. It can be a voice you hear audibly in your mind. It can be an experience that you have in a church community. Or, as for me, what it was, I watched my father, who was a pastor.
He's a pastor as well.
And he invited me into ministry. He would have me come to Bible studies. He would have me come to church programs. He'd say, Philip, I'd like you to now teach the lesson, everyone. Me? Are you serious? You know, the first time I preached in church, I was 12 years old.
Wow.
He said, Philip, I think you have something to share that these congregants could hear that would bless their life. And so he prepared with me, studied with me. And the moment I walked up there, I felt completely like I had found what I need to do for life. And so I am really a servant of the people, but I use the gifts I think God has given me in the idea of speech and communication and talking. We call this the gift of exhortation.
Exhortation.
Exhortation, this idea of encouragement of the people of God. And I shepherd them, you know, into a certain understanding of the Bible and Scripture. So I felt that at a young age. And then I went to school. I went to college and studied theology. Okay. I initially wanted to go into medicine, actually.
Okay.
Dr. Ben Carson was very impactful on my life. I was a poor immigrant to this country. I didn't do well initially at school.
When did you arrive in the U.S.?
We came to America in 1989, July 7. So Americans celebrate July 4 is Independence Day. We celebrate July 7.
1989.
And we came because my dad wanted to go to school. And we ended up staying because the Civil War broke out in Yugoslavia. My dad's Serbian, mother is Croatian, and so it was almost impossible to go back, stay together. So we came, and they studied. I was going to do medicine, and then I spent a year. In the Adventist system, we have something called student missions. You can commit a year, 2 years of your life to serve somewhere in the world, anywhere. It's not required, it's just voluntary. And so you have thousands of young people every year committing to serve for a year. And so I ended up finding a position in Washington to be a coach, teacher, and youth pastor for young people in a high school. And while I was there, I just was so impressed by God. I could not do anything else in my life. I left medicine. I know that that was my first love, but now I've found the spiritual medicine to help people with. And it's been the best decision of my life. I've never looked back. And so I went back the next year to college, and I said I'd like to do theology. And then I went one more educational step. We call it the Masters in Divinity. It seems ridiculous to master divinity, but that's what it's called, and so that takes...
Loma Linda, you took
it was in Andrews University.
Which is in California.
Which is in Michigan. That's our flagship institution for theological training in Adventism. It's in a little school called Andrews University in a town called Berrien Springs.
Okay.
And so I spent another 3 years studying there, and then I came back here to California to follow my wife, who went to medical school.
Okay.
So we ended up in Loma Linda.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you had a position waiting for you here when you arrived, or?
You know, it was during a season when there were not many positions for pastors, and they said there's one spot for you. And I said, oh really? Where could it be? And it was Orange County, Laguna Beach. I said, okay, I'm going. And so I traveled 70 miles almost every day, every other day to Laguna from here. And I pastored a church congregation as an associate with one other senior pastor. And so we worked together out there.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there something you want to share? Just one special message related to health or to longevity?
Mm-hmm.
That there's one thing that you're sensing would help people abroad to understand?
Yeah. I think if you want to be really truly healthy, you have to think about a holistic sense of health. Health is not just the food you eat. Health is not just community together with you. Health is not just connecting with God. Health is really an overall encompassing facet of life. It means more than just one thing. It's when everything comes together, there is health. Because when you're dealing with the married relationship issues, or you're dealing with financial constraints, you're dealing with unhealthiness, right? And so health is this encompassing reality. How does everything in my life work together to be optimized for the best picture? Health is all of it put together. And I think Adventists have something to say to the world, and that is, think about your walk with God. Think about the purpose and meaning of life. It can't just be for here and now. There must be something more. But also think about being a blessing to the world. Bless those around you. Don't keep health to yourself. Give it away. Health is something you can give. You know, with a healthy relationship with someone. Teaching someone when you invite them to your home how to eat different, how to speak kindly, how to smile. You know, health is a lot more than just one thing.
Thanks, Philip.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's two things I wanted to ask you about, because what about the rate of divorce within the Adventist community?
Sure.
Because for us, it was such inspirational to see what we've seen Friday night, like to discuss things very deep.
Yeah.
That in our community, sometimes people in their 50s, 60s, they never ask themselves these questions.
Yeah.
And but we've heard through Hans and Heinz that there's still divorce.
Sure.
In the community. So how you well, because we thought, I mean, people are well prepared here to engage themselves into a relationship, but what can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
There's less divorce rates?
So the divorce rate in the Adventist church is actually less than the national divorce rate in the United States. So it's close to 50% nationally in terms of just religious, non-religious people. But Adventists do get divorced a little bit less, and I think that's because of the strong faith bond. You know, in Scripture it says, in the book of Micah, God's speaking out to his people. He says, hey, I hate divorce. What that means, someone can look at that, hey, that's really negative. I've experienced divorce. No. Think about it the other way. What God is saying is he loves marriage. He loves a healthy relationship, because when you break down the husband and wife, you break down the children. Then you break down generations to come, because the child now knows they've come from a broken home, a divided family unit. And so when God says, I hate divorce, he says, I love marriage so much, preserve it, please, for the sake of the generations to come. And so I think faith plays a unique dynamic in this understanding. Hey, we'll at least think twice before we'll enter into a divorce, because of that spiritual dynamic to it. And so it's a very sacred thing to enter, and it's beautiful. I love being married. I've been married now 11 years, and it's an exciting journey to commit yourself fully to someone. And you see, commitments work like this in terms of a faith community, how we believe this works. When you commit to someone, to a dating relationship, then you can enter into a commitment then physically only up to this far, and emotionally only up to this far. Then your commitment level to being engaged, now your commitment level to being emotionally engaged can increase as well. And then when you say to marriage, now your physical engagement, emotional engagement can climb with it. But in society what happens is, hey, I've got an app on my phone. I can connect with someone tonight. We can be romantically connected, and then physically by the night's end we can be emotionally connected and physically connected to the highest level. But we say, hey, whoa, slow down with that. Without the commitment, you cannot enter into a higher level of physical union with someone. That's really important, because when you bond sexually with someone, you're bonding in one of the most intimate ways two people can connect. And so if you say, I'm going to treat this like just another casual experience, you're missing out the seriousness that relationships provide to people. If I connect with just random people a couple nights a week, I have no commitment to you. I just have a self-desire that something within me is met. But when I commit to someone fully, I'm committing to their problems, I'm committing to their weaknesses, and I'm committed to working through these things together and saying, I'm willing to sacrifice myself to be with you forever. I'm sacrificing my preferences to help you and you to help me. It's this mutuality. But when we have this casual dating culture, casual sexual culture, it breaks down the bonds of something that the Bible talks about as covenant. Covenant is what God has with his people. It means I choose to be with you in your weakness, and I will stick with you. More firm and secure than just a contract. If you fail, you're part of the contract. We're ripping this up. It's over. We're done. That's how many marriages are. They're contractual. But when you fail, realistic vows should actually be said like this. I love telling this at a wedding. When I fail you, when I'm not there, when I let you down, when I cause us trouble, when I am at my worst, Please love me still. Please be with me still, because I will be with you at your worst, even at your best. Those are realistic marriage vows. But what we say is, oh, you know, in happiness and in death do you part. But then it's like, you know what, you're getting too old for me. You're not that young, vibrant woman anymore. I see this other girl here. She's much better. You are now dealing with health issues. All kinds of things. So that's kind of why I think faith is so important to the Adventist, and why I think we do a little better in terms of marriage commitment over the longevity of time. Faith has a big impact on that.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time talking about that.
Well,
Sorry.
You're
Sorry.
good, brother. You're good.
Sorry.
Thanks for that. I mean, it went straight in. Well, thank you so much.
We can do the wedding right now if you'd like.
You're brilliant. No,
Love you guys. I really have appreciated so much staying connected with the two of you. I really sense a hunger for truth in both of you as well. Yeah.
There's something you said also, because you know I dealt with a lot of pathologies as an osteopath in my life, with people being sick, and what you said, I mean, it touched me also very much. Like, you know, our body is a temple and we need to be fit and sound to connect vertically first. But what about all these people who are coming with, you know, disability, for them not to feel sense of guilt, because sometimes, you know, people get pathologies or disability, so I understand very much what you're saying, but how do you bounce around for these people who are disabled, not to feel guilty because they cannot take care of their temple? What would be, you know, there's something inside. I would like to have your two cents on that.
I think the beautiful difference, you know, C.S. Lewis walked into a lecture hall one time in Cambridge where the majority of the professors were discussing world religions and what's the significance of Christianity. Why should anyone think Christianity is any better than any other religion? And what makes Christianity really significant? And C.S. Lewis, overhearing about the discussion, he said, it's simple. It's grace. Now, this word is very, very unique to Christianity because not many people understand what that means, grace. Grace is unmerited favor. Unmerited, meaning you didn't do anything to deserve what I'm going to give you. You actually could have been at your very worst, and yet I'm going to still give you this thing called grace. This idea of compassion, love, fortune. I'm going to give that to you, not because you deserve it, but because God Himself had grace on me, even at my worst. It says, Paul in his writings in the New Testament says, even yet while you were still sinners, Christ died for you. While you were at your worst. And so when we think about how do we have compassion on those who potentially have caused harm to themselves and are now in a bad position, or life circumstance, someone born genetically with something else, or people dealing with emotional health issues, or all kinds of things that cause us to mistreat our bodies, whether it's voluntarily or involuntarily. That's where the community of God steps in and says, we have something for that, and that's called grace. It's called unmerited favor. You're in a hard position in life, and we want to be there for you. We want to love there for you, and we want to have understanding for you. And if that means supporting you in some way, we'll do it. Or if it just means a mental understanding when people are the way they are, it's just grace for them. Thing our young people have been doing here, and it's called the King's Table. I don't know if you've ever followed our Instagram feed, but we noticed that there were people who were not doing well in the community right next to us. And our young adult pastor, prior to me, petitioned for a grant to create, over the longevity of 2 years, 33,000 brown bag meals for the homeless.
Wow.
Every weekend at church, young people would gather. They would make sandwiches, drinks, some cookies, some food, and they would make these lunches for people who are dealing with homelessness. And some of these young people said, hey, you know what, this is not enough. I actually want to go beyond that. And so they planted themselves in San Bernardino, and now a thriving ministry happens. I'd love for you to experience it on Thursday night. It's called Fusion, and it's saying we want to see our community grow healthy. So they provide food for anyone who's either low income, living in one of the shelters, or just homeless off the street. They provide haircuts, clothing. For the first hour that happens. And then from 7 to 8 they have classes. Healthy cooking class, healthy living class, helping you with jobs, piano, guitar, art class, exercise class. And this is just trying to give back again to the community. We're blessed, we want to bless you. And it's a mindset. How can I take this beyond myself, beyond my church, to those around us? And so in San Bernardino, we have a community of young people who are saying, we want to give back. We want to do something. And I think one thing is, you can do so much more than you think you can. You just have to speak out your dreams to people. And you have to gather those who like-mindedly feel and believe those dreams. And when you get together, you speak those dreams out, magic happens as you take action together. Yeah. So we did an event called King's Table. And it's a feast we provided for people dealing with homelessness. The first time we ever did it, we invited a premier chef from Orange County to come, prepared the food, no charge. We had glass, silverware, plates, everything. It wasn't just like, let me slop some food, but no, it was beautifully decorated. And we had young adults actually dressed in black and white in attire like waiters, serving every single person dealing with homelessness that night. That was the first time we ever did it. It was 15 homeless men at the men's shelter. And we ate with them. We didn't want them to feel alone in their homelessness. We ate beside them. And these young adults said, we want to take this and do more. And so the last 2 times we've done this now for over 200 people who are dealing with this. And we made this banquet table. We called it the King's Table. We didn't want anyone to feel less than. And we ate with them. And we fed them chef-prepared food at a night they wouldn't forget.
Wow. Because
we want them to remember they are important to us. Those who are not healthy right now are important to us. They matter. And so each person can choose to do that in their own way.